Hey team, Katie here. I'm going to do a quick training. I say quick, but we all know how these tend to turn out. So I'm going to say I'm going to do a training with Phoenix. So since Phoenix has come back from his holidays this year, you can see that he has started to bulk quite nicely. However, I'm having some ongoing problems with him with regards to um, showing signs of pain and figuring out what's going on and saddle fit and whatnot. So the saddle that he was working in last year was no longer fitting him coming back into lessons this year. It was pressing on his wither. And so we changed him over into this saddle. And so on this ride, I kept asking him to work up through his back. And so we had a professional saddle fitter out who fit the saddle to him. So the saddle technically fits, but he just doesn't like it. So I equate it to a horse like having, shoes that fit, but they're uncomfortable and give you blisters. I think that that's probably what Phoenix is complaining about, is that it fits him, but it's uncomfortable. So there's little signs and signals along the way, like where he's shaking his ears out there. That's an indication of him trying to release the crest. So it could be a sign of him warming up. But as we continue through the ride, the more I ask him to work up into himself, the more he just keeps tucking behind the bit and evading contact. We know that he does like to evade contact, but I also expect more of him. So it comes down to, as you get more comfortable with getting to know your horse, you will start to recognize that things aren't quite right. And that's where the troubleshooting comes in and also creates a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, inconvenience, I guess, for us as the riders, trying to figure out what the problem is. So Phoenix has also had the chiro out since we did this training session. So he was also out. I didn't actually think that physically he was that bad, but and I actually wasn't going to get him looked at. But once the chiro looked at him, he was in quite a bit of pain. So it always goes to show that you just don't really know. I mean, how long have I been doing this? Like, at the very least 15 years of just like troubleshooting pain and discomfort. And so he's still trying to figure out, when they're not working correctly and when they're not working happily, trying to figure out why and how best to help them. You can see here he's really not getting into his hindquarters. And so all of his weight is distributed onto the forehand. So that could have to do with, having a month off and all of that muscle tone getting let down. We knew that he wasn't working correctly into his hindquarters at the end of last year anyway, because he wasn't going into his reinbacks without hollowing. So it could have been just, enough time for all of the muscles to let down to really show us where those physical conditionings need to be. And after having his chiro work, he is really tight in his lower back. So there is, a potential that we did like over supple it last year with our exercises, without complementing it with the cantering that we needed to do. We did plenty of cantering, but I think we needed to do more canter spirals. So warming him up on this day. Like nothing particularly out of the ordinary. Just like we can see that he's tracking up. Okay. He's going through his trot poles. Okay. He's seeking contact. Okay. There's a little bit of that right hind disengaging, which he likes to do. But the shoulders are striding short. And there is a feel that you can get and see, he's going into contact quite well there as well. There is a feeling that you can get as they you can slightly see it in the shoulders. They're just not moving as freely as Phoenix will move when he's comfortable. The shoulders are tight for Phoenix, but compare it to other horses and they're good. Like he's got more range of movement through his shoulders there than Billy Hunter. When we look at Angel, Rabbit, there's quite decent lift through the shoulder there. But for Phoenix, it's looking restricted and tight. So there's a feeling that you can get through the saddle of when your horse frees up and works through its back. And I just wasn't getting it with Phoenix this day. You can, and it's something that you get like when we warm up. So we talk about our warm up exercises that we do, serpentines, leg yields, like laterally as he comes along, he should be getting more over his back. You could see a slight irregularity of the stride through this left shoulder here. And then a tendency again to go too deep, but not as bad as he was last year. So, it's tricky, right? So, as they warm up, you can start to feel them work over the back. So he is there, but what is happening is he's getting more onto the forehand as he works over his back. He's wanting less and less to get into his hindquarters. And so this could be a combination of him not liking this particular saddle at the moment or the pain, because he had quite pretty much his whole left side he was struggling with when the chiro had a look at him. So there wasn't really much to show that he was having a big problem. But what we can see is every time I try to ride a half halt, he runs through it or goes too deep. And then what I could feel is that he didn't want to come up over his back. So if we go, and so I'm doing lots of reinbacks to try and get him into his hindquarters. But if we skip ahead to the canter, that's where we really start to see it. And so, in these other bits of training, we can just be getting frustrated, right? Why isn't, he working as well as I know that he can? Why isn't my half halt working? Why is he running through the contact? Why isn't he transferring his weight onto the hindquarters? And the more we go, the more reinbacks that we do to try and get him into his hindquarters, the more resistance I get, which is also not Phoenix. He's always the horse that is compliant and cooperative and eager to work and, do well. So it's just about, knowing your horse, knowing what their normal is. So I decided to pop up into canter. If I open the canter up into a 2-point seat and get him covering the ground, maybe he would get a bit more comfortable. But he just got more on the forehand, more through the bit, more heavy in my hands. Look, even the halt is pretty square there. So there's not a lot that he's giving us apart from uncharacteristic resistance and forehandiness. So without knowing him, you would think that he's absolutely fine and that he potentially just needs some more drilling to get better at his exercise. The shoulders are starting to move more freely here. But if we have a look at the canter transition, there isn't really one. And that's when I said, nah, there's something wrong. This isn't Phoenix. And so I changed saddles. I know that this saddle fits him, but it's not his saddle. So he's still, working quite deep, working behind the bit. Donkey and Stormy playing in the background. Half halts aren't great. And mind you, the chiro still came out after this and did a big manipulation on him. Can see it a little bit on turns there where he doesn't want to weight bear in that left shoulder. But so much happier to move forward now. And you can see the difference already, like his ears are pricked. He doesn't have that same like, ugh, I'm unhappy look in his face. And there are a handful of brands of saddles that I really don't like. As much as people say that Wintex are cheap rubbish, I find that a lot of horses are fairly comfortable in them. There are cheaper, more rubbish saddles. The one that I was in with him previously, for example. That does make our horses more uncomfortable. And so that's the canter. Same day, 5 minutes difference. The only difference that there is the saddle. So he's still not perfect. I basically hopped off him at this point and said, yeah, okay, cool. Like, I need to rethink what I'm doing with saddles and get the chiro out and make sure that everything's chugging along okay. So he's kind of had a bit of a, had the skids put on his training a little bit until we get his saddle organized and get him working a little bit better again. So that's an indication of the problems that can come up for our horses if they don't like their saddle, which is fair enough, I think. Thanks for watching. Bye.